If you're a pop culture junkie who loves TV, film, music, comedy, and other really important stuff, then you've come to the right place. Get ready and settle in for Classic Conversations, the best pop culture interviews in the world. That's right, we circled the globe so you don't have to. If you're ready to be the king of the water cooler, then you're ready for Classic Conversations with your host, Jeff Dwoskin.
All right, Marsha, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. You get the show going each and every week, and this week was no exception. Welcome, everybody, to episode 298 of Classic Conversations. As always, I am your host, Jeff Dwoskin. Great to have you back for what's sure to be another hilariously laugh-filled episode with my guest comedian, Rhonda Hansome. And that's coming up in just a few seconds. And in these few seconds, Monique Raymond was here. Crunch, 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 crunch. That was me. But Monique talks about how she is the actual master of Foley artistry. That is a amazing conversation. Do not miss that. But right now, do not miss my conversation with comedian, director, actress, Rhonda Hansome. We're talking the Muppets. Rhonda was on the first episode of Saturday Night Live. Rhonda had a role in Pretty Woman and shares some great stories working with Gary Marshall and Julia Roberts. We're talking Joan Rivers. We're talking Anita Baker. We're talking legend after legend. So many stories coming up right now. All right, everyone, I'm excited to introduce my next guest, actor, director, comedian. Welcome to the show, Rhonda Hansome.
Yay! I'm delighted to be here. Yay!
Oh, it's so good to have you here. Let's see, the first thing that caught my eye, the Nina Simone of comedy.
Yes, that's me. That is me.
Break that down for me.
Well, one of my earliest hashtags was a quote from my mother. Rhonda Hansome is one funny Negro. ... Rhonda's mother. That was great for me in the beginning of comedy. And as my humor and consciousness turned a lot more towards politics, that hashtag did not make me feel that it was justified or working for me, but understanding first the talent of Nina Simone, but her commitment to liberation and clarity around the plight of Black people in America made me feel like, oh, okay, I have found a new hashtag, the Nina Simone of comedy. She was fierce in her beliefs. And I won't say that I am as strong as she is, but I find her a constant inspiration for expressing myself through my creativity.
She was a powerhouse, singer, songwriter, civil rights activist, and not just like classical folk, gossip, R&B, pop, everything.
Yes,
powerhouse.
Absolutely.
All right, so that's cool. Sometimes the subtleties of things that just are right there in front of us on our websites and stuff, they speak louder. So it's like, wanted to ask, Rhonda, how did you get into comedy? Were you always funny?
Oh my gosh, that's such a great question. First, I was always funny. Even as a kid, I felt a little bit out of, like a fish out of water, because growing up in the previous century, being a woman of a certain age who grew up in the previous century, in predominantly white faces, I always felt kind of funny wherever I was, starting in kindergarten. As I was growing, I felt like my take on so many things that were going on around me was just kind of unusual, unique, and frequently funny. And I remember very early on as a teenager starting to do song parodies. And, I just sort of felt an attraction towards performing, even though when I was in college, major was sociology. But at the last minute, I switched my major and my minor. I switched to make my major performing arts, so that I really felt like, oh, I'm this creative type. I might not be sitting in the library or doing sociological tests or comparisons and writing essays, but I sure would love to act and express myself that way. And I started acting, and it was very challenging to get roles. I always say that I had a choice of of playing either a maid or a hooker. And I didn't mind because I always said the same thing. I'm coming. The way life was for me until I saw an ad in Backstage magazine, Backstage newspaper, about the Muppets looking for puppeteers. So I moved to audition and was accepted and was taught puppetry by Frank Oz and Jim Henson. And actually, that was how I ended up on Saturday Night Live, performing with them on the very first show as a Muppeteer. That was short-lived for me, as was the whole segment of the Muppets on that show of Saturday Night Live. But I went on to tour with Pickwick Puppets and to teach puppetry and do puppetry. And I found in the puppetry, I loved everything that had to do with humor and strayed into improv somehow with the First Amendment Improv Company. We auditioned for a famous cabaret here in New York City, the Duplex. And the director said that I was hogging the stage during the audition when I thought I was just filling the void, so to speak. And I thought, well, maybe I need to be on my own doing stand-up comedy. And that's when I started true stand-up.
Okay, that's a lot. Let's go.
Yeah.
This is great though. But all right, so can't just gloss over. Oh yeah. Jim Henson and Frank Oz taught me Muppets. Then I did improv. No. Yeah, I think I need to expand on the Muppets. So you were on. So I mean, it's an interesting thing to learn comedy through the Muppets because it was on Saturday Night Live. So it was definitely meant to be comedy. The land of Gorch. You were
Yes.
Vaz.
Bosh, yes. Yes, the celery maid. Made again.
Talk to me about like just learning puppeteering, I guess, from...
It was fun. It was very creative and it was kind of excruciating. And the thing about it was like a reality show before reality shows. This is how long ago it was because we were all in a workshop. The Muppets had put in the Backstage magazine that they were looking for actors to train to be puppeteers. But every week that we came in, someone was missing. Someone had been eliminated. And it was quite nerve-wracking to never know when the axe was going to fall. We were basically being trained to be inside a huge puppet to work on big stages for something at Madison Square Garden. And then suddenly they came in and said, we're going to stop this and you're going to be working from your elbow to the tip of your fingers. And we started working with a monitor in preparation for the Muppet segments on Saturday Night Live. And that's how it happened. I thought I would be doing something more in the physical, in the frame of Mummenschanz, which I always love. And it ended up being just the opposite. But it was an incredibly exciting time. You cannot be going on the first live show in decades without being excited and being in that whole atmosphere at Rockefeller Center and being with the premier people in puppetry. So it was very exciting and a little disappointing that I only had the opportunity to perform once before. Fran Brill came in to do a couple of segments but they started eliminating the Muppets entirely until it was only Fred interacting with the guest hosts.
Got it. So this first Land of Gorch, it wasn't like a pre-taped segment that they played. You were there.
It was live and kind of frightening being on live TV like that. I remember during dress rehearsal that one of the actresses said, "Lauren, what do we do if we make a mistake?" And he said, you just keep going. Yeah, that's all you do. It was quite an exciting time. And then it led for me to be the secretary of the Puppetry Guild of Greater New York for, I think, 1 or 2 years.
Well, I have a couple other questions about Saturday Night Live. So you're there live, first episode, right? So that George Carlin hosted that episode.
Yeah.
Were you at the after party with Aykroyd, Belushi, Gilda, Jane?
Well, I
Chevy?
felt simpatico with the Black cast member
Garrett
on there. because he actually came from the same background that I did, theater. He was quite popular in Black theater. And going to the after party with a bunch of people who really, firstly, you may or may not be aware, but they did not like the fact that the Muppets were even on there. They really did not like it at all. Being at the after party, I did not get a chance to indulge with the drugs of the time with the talent. I was essentially a fly on the wall at the after party, just trying to take it all in.
Okay, so you're just hanging with Garrett Morris and is watching. Yeah, I was gonna say I'm sure the amount of drugs that it's rumored back in those days, they probably got over the whole Muppet thing pretty quick into that party. But that's the Rhonda, that's the legendary first after party, the first episode. I mean, that's like, and you were there. That's
It was awesome. It was really awesome. I'm glad I had that opportunity.
Okay, so Fran Brill, they get to replace you, who later went on to be Zoe, if anybody, who was a big deal of it later on Sesame Street. I think Elmo's Friends, something like that. Why did Fran take your place? Why didn't...
I don't know. It was very odd, and it was very strange getting fired from a job you'd only done one time. But, how many people can say they were fired by Jim Henson? I'm in that elite group. So.
I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
You can also say, oh, I made it to the first episode of Saturday Night Live. Billy Crystal didn't.
I always do. I love when I tell people that I was on that first episode, and then I watch them doing the math in their heads. Always fun to see their eyes roll back.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And then what does the secretary of the Puppetry Guild do?
I took notes. I pulled no strings, but I did take notes.
Pulled no strings. Okay, so that's really cool. All right, so then improv and stand-up. Where does the acting kind of fall in? Did you...
Well, the acting came from being at Brooklyn College in the performing arts school there. I was there when they first started their performing arts school. And again, I'm going back to the previous century for your audience who may not know that I am a Black entertainer, a Black artist. At that time, at Brooklyn College, the only Black professor on faculty was on sabbatical. So I missed out on having the attention of a Black professor in my department. So it was actually catch as catch can in the department for me as a aspiring theatrical person. I studied and learned as much as I could in that particular situation. But I always had this conflict because at that time, there was a lot of urban filming going on, so that there were people who had been, as I had mentioned, I was part of the Black theater scene, who were now actually in movies that were being shot right on the street. And I was in this ivory tower writing essays on Inigo Jones, and French theater in Kings were presenting. And it felt very strange and not really me. At all. However many times a chariot went across the stage for, representing, a king, didn't really hit me that in the heart. Didn't hit me in the heart.
Oh, again, were you a maid or hooker in Pretty Woman?
Oh my God. And this is another one of those, this was the first night of shooting. It was actually the first night of shooting. And I am just such an odd duck. I'm in the makeup chair getting, my makeup done. And I did not realize that how much the director just worked from improv. And that was before I had my improv experience. And so I said to the woman, who was dressed in hooker outfit next to me, I said, "Do you know your lines?" And she goes, yeah, I think I got them. And so when I went out to shoot, this is the first night on Sunset Boulevard or Hollywood Boulevard, wherever we were shooting. And he just says, "Play like a hooker." And I did it. And then later on, when the movie came out, I realized the person who was in the makeup room with me was Julia Roberts. And yes, she did know her lines. I just had to make mine up as I went along, playing Bermuda in Pretty Woman.
Isn't it funny to think about, like, in hindsight, right? Like now to say, oh, yeah, I was sitting next to Julie Roberts and I had no idea who she was.
She just finished Mystic Pizza. I think that was the only thing she had really been in up until that point. Yeah.
I'm saying you were there. You were there at the beginning before. This is what really kind of blew her up.
Yeah.
You're probably one of those. You got fired by Jim Henson and and you had the distinction of sitting next to Julie Roberts and not knowing who the hell she was.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm an odd duck.
So what was it like engaging with or like working with Gary Marshall as well?
He's really extraordinary. And I think I did one or two other shows. He had some comedy shows on TV that I did. It was extraordinary. And I think frequently artists are lucky and things can be put to timing. You know, it was after I had worked with him on the film that I went into improv and became quite at home with it. But if you have never done improv, or if you've never actually worked on a movie, you know, it can be a little intimidating. And for me, it was always a little strange because I would be playing a hooker and I remember one time, this is like, as I said, in the previous century, Castle Rock, I think I had gone to audition for something and they wanted me to play transgender. And I didn't know if they thought transgender was not even a word at that time. They wanted me to play like I was a man. And I thought, well, do they really think I'm a man? You know, what's going on here? It's fascinating the way timing and time changes your perspective. Now I'm quite at home with improvisation. I find it kind of exciting and fun. And also part of my work at a laboratory at the Tribeca Performing Arts Center, I was in someone's presentation, and I played a transgender, you know, with no problem at all. It's time and timing and experience.
Wow. So all right. So Gary Marshall.
I got a lot going on here.
It's awesome. Wait, so was Hank Azaria? Because he was in that movie. He was in those early scenes too. He was like the beat cop. I was rewatching some of the beginning of it.
I was on my street putting my head into the car windows asking guys if they wanted a date on that show.
All right, so you do improv. How long were you doing improv before they were like, you're taking up too much of the space?
She said I was hogging the stage.
Hogging the stage.
I did it for about 2 years or so. There was a great theater here in New York City that only did comedies called the Manhattan Punchline. And being there and being around other people, they had a group called the Broadway Local. And I was part of the First Amendment improv company. But I started being around people who did improv, and then I started doing it myself. And I loved it. Then I thought, well, maybe I can do this on my own, and never look back.
Of course you loved it. You were hogging the stage, taking all the...
It's just about me. And then a little bit about me.
So talk to me about kind of then making that transition to stand-up comedian and sort of navigating your rise to fame there in terms of working the clubs, evening at the Improv.
I would tell anyone who is going into it in the previous century, you should know somebody in the industry. And in anything you're going into, it helps to know someone. I knew no one who was doing stand-up comedy. I was coming from this artistic background in Black theater. I didn't really understand protocol. I auditioned like a lot of people, picking a number. I was very excited when I got past The Catch a Rising Star by Bill Sheff and Adrian Tolsch. And then eventually I passed at the Improv. Silver Friedman passed me at the Improv. And it became hanging out. I understood was needed. You hung out and you waited for someone not to show up for their spot so that you could go on, or go on, say, at 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. That was one of the things at that time. The clubs actually stayed open until the customers left. So you could actually be on stage at 1 or 2 in the morning. It was arduous. It was arduous, especially since I had a child. And much of what I felt I was supposed to do was hang out and network. And the hardest thing was finding out who booked shows, the local shows where you could actually make some money outside of the showcase clubs like the Improv and Catch a Rising Star. And it took a lot of time. And it was a little, misogynistic. I did not play cards. I mean, there were like regular card games at the comic strip, and there was a softball team at the Improv. I wasn't athletic. So, I sort of missed out on networking in those situations. But I did the best I could. And some people, would, say, oh, call this person, call that person. And suddenly I ended up with a manager. And I said, yeah, I want a manager whose last client killed himself. And that's actually who I had. I had Dave Jonas, who had been with the young comic Chico and the Man. That's the artist that he had. And it was very sad. But this guy saw me and we started working together. Dave Jonas saw me and put me in the Catskills in Atlantic City and into what was just the best experience of my career, one of the best, a 2.5-year tour opening for Anita Baker.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I have to take a quick break. I do want to thank everyone for their support of the sponsors. When you support the sponsors, you're supporting us here at Classic Conversations, and that's how we keep the lights on. And now back to my conversation with Rhonda Hansome. So when you were hanging out at the clubs, when you were coming up, who else was coming up? It
was not about who was coming up. It was who was big. I mean, there was Richard Belzer, David Brenner, Robin Williams. When you say who was coming up, it was this really young kid, Chris Rock, who was coming up. For me, it was just extraordinary to be hanging out in the back and, to see this stream of, comedic talent giving master classes every single night in the art of stand-up comedy.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And also, some of the musicians at that time at Catch a Rising Star, Rick Newman was managing Pat Benatar. So sometimes there were, musicians coming in as well as headlining comics.
Opening for Anita Baker for 2.5 years.
Unbelievable. Absolutely unbelievable. First class. I loved it. I really wish I had representation now because she has all of that stuff going on with Babyface. I really would like to just pop right in there and be her opening act. No pressure, no problem. I did outdoor venues, amphitheaters in the spring and summer. And then we did the big indoor venues like the Radio City Music Hall of every state that we went to. So it was just incredible. And I loved being on those big stages. It was different from being in the club with a couple of tables or even a full audience at a club, and then being someplace like Radio City where thousands of people are laughing at you. I loved it. I loved it.
When you say different than the clubs, like my first thought, my question is, you're performing in front of all these folks, and clearly it went amazing because you loved it so much. So as a comic, I know if they weren't laughing, you wouldn't have said it was great. Is it harder because they're there to see Anita Baker, a singer? And then, okay, hey, before that, here comes comedian Rhonda Hansome. I know it's a thing, comedians opening for musicians, but is it harder to like?
Not for me, because I only had to do sometimes 15 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever they asked me to do. And the show did not rely on me. And also, I was on while people frequently, not all the time, while people were still coming in. There was no pressure on me. All I had to do was go out there and have fun. The worst time was when Anita's driver took her to the wrong state.
State?
Yes. We were performing in North Carolina and she was in South Carolina, and they put me up 45 minutes late in a non-air conditioned gymnasium because we had to wait for her to get to the correct venue. And when I got out there, people started chanting, "You're not Anita, you're not Anita, you're not Anita." I think I had a disassociative experience at that time. I got through my jokes. I saw one of the stagehands let me know, okay, she's backstage, and they helped me off. And I don't even think I could see for the next couple of hours. I was, it was really quite fascinating experience. When an artist is late for their show and it was not the most comfortable of venues, and then they throw up this unknown comic. And that was the only time I had any issue with it. But otherwise, it was just so much fun to know all I had to do was do my 10, 15, 20, whatever they wanted, and then relax and watch this songbird do her thing, the diva do her thing.
I guess tangent question. So 2.5 years with Anita Baker. So how many times then did you see Anita Baker perform? I'm guessing like a bazillion.
A bazillion, but I loved it. I love opening for the Pointer Sisters. I mean, every time I finished, I would stand in the wings and dance. I mean, I opened for Aretha Franklin. How could I not stay back there and watch the Queen of Soul? When you are with these majestic, these iconic people, you can't help yourself but try to absorb what they're about.
So you opened some for like Diana Ross, right? James Brown, powerhouses.
Absolutely. And I just feel so blessed to have had these experiences.
So amazing. It's so great. So who is the biggest diva? Diana Ross, big diva? She's always portrayed as a diva.
Yeah, yes, she was. But James Brown was a bit of a diva, too. I remember I was told, do not even walk past his dressing room on my way to the stage. I'm going, I'm not going to be trying to talk to him when I'm on my way to open the show. I also understand that when you are in that position and you are responsible for the livelihood of scores of people, if not more, you learn to protect yourself in certain ways. And some people were more accessible than others. I don't want to give being a diva a derogatory aspect because most of them have earned it.
Yeah, no, I meant it in a fun way. But how were they like after the show to hang out? I get 100% before a show. You're in the zone. You can't start chatting about something. I mean, you got to like focus. And you as a comedian, you know that too. Like you got to get the game. You got to get in the game. So I get that before a show doing that. How were they like after the show or like, stuff like that?
I remember having a great Christmas party with the Anita Baker crew. The Pointer Sisters gave me beautiful gifts, a lovely jewelry box. I mean, I was late to Westbury Music Fair to open for Tony Orlando. And once the stagehands, the backstage people actually let me in, Tony went out and introduced me to the crowd. I mean, that was like unbelievable. I was late. For some reason, I decided to buy a car and drive to Westbury on the same day.
I thought when you said that, I assumed you had just gotten Anita Baker's driver.
No, I was driving myself and I didn't take into the account the Long Island Expressway and trying to get to Westbury. But once I finally got in, he was so generous. He didn't even have to do that. He could have said, no, she's not going on. Or he could have said, okay, put her on. But he went out and told the audience, this young comedian, she just had a little trouble on the road and she's very funny. I want you to, give a warm welcome to Rhonda Hansome. And I will never forget that. So I always say I have been blessed with some of the most wonderful experiences.
Sounds like it. Do you have photos with all these people?
You know what? This is the thing coming up again, in the previous century. There was no Instagram. There was no Facebook. Selfies were not a thing. I'm lucky that I actually have a picture of me with Chubby Checker. I opened for him. And I have, one shot with Anita. The thing is, our lives now, as at least a level of some artists, some entertainers, revolves around social media. And that was not a thing, at the time. It was all about getting the work and doing it. And now it's all about, if there's no pictures, it didn't happen.
Makes the OG artists that much more impressive that they didn't have they went viral, so now they're famous. They all earned it.
That's really very interesting what you bring up about that, because I don't know how you feel about it. And I would like to know how you feel about it. There are some people who actually have gone viral on the internet, and when presented with a live audience, have not been able to really deal with the situation. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I do. I happen to have one right here. I think there's two categories, right? There's a Justin Bieber getting discovered, and he actually he blossoms into an actual talent, right? Okay, so there's that. But then there's folks that just do something that happens to be funny because it was pre-recorded or it was just a moment, goes viral. And then the clubs think, oh, this is how it translates now. We bring people in and they can make us money because they have a following. And some of them do.
Yes.
But that doesn't translate. I mean, being in front of a crowd and like being able to control an audience. I always thought like it was interesting, like comedians that kind of fast tracked through opening a show and then became middles where it's a little more cushy, right? It's like if you didn't have like that time where you were like taking it for the team, opening that show and building up that skin and really kind of knowing how to control anything, then when you did move up, you didn't know how to handle it. And like if a heckler just could take you down in a hot second.
Absolutely.
So these people, they don't know how to be on stage. They don't know how to have these massive inputs coming from every direction because they probably just ignore all the negative comments on the TikTok or whatever. They just focus on what they want to focus on. But when you're there and there's just people and you have to react and it's live and it's now, and it's like, I think we elevate people too quickly to like that kind of status. I think it's cool to go viral. I would love to have something go viral, but I wouldn't expect the whole world to suddenly.
The seasoning helps to deal with the live audience a lot. You know, it is a very different situation being on the internet. I'm trying to keep up with the internet parade without tripping over my own feet, but I found that during the lockdown, I could do Zoom shows and it was different, a different experience, but I love the live. I really do love the live.
Yeah, there's something about the energy from a crowd that just you can't replace it. You know, it's like when I'm not on stage, like that's what I miss. If I'm watching a friend of mine, that's what I'm jealous of. You know what I'm saying? Like just to, because it's interesting when you're a comedian and you get on stage and you're doing material, the good ones, you're aware, you can feel the room. And I feel like that happens now. Like I've done that, you know, after so many years, you could be with someone and you can feel conversation. You understand what they're thinking and, you know, just from the vibes. I think it's like a superpower.
It is.
The TikTok folks don't have that. They'll never, you know, you can't have it. The thing about stand-up comedy or improv or anything, right? It's like you have to actually do it. And doing a video is not the same thing as doing a live show and being able to control a live audience. I can't do what they do either.
Different experience, yeah. I think the big issue with that was what you expressed, that these people had a following. And in today's society, in today's marketplace, that's what's important, that following. How many likes, how many eyeballs, how many butts can we get in the seats? And less so than the quality of the show.
Right. Now, if it happened to somebody who is a professional, like I have lots of friends that make a living doing comedy, but you've never heard of them. They're working it on TikTok. If all of a sudden that blew up, they're ready to go. They're plug and play.
Absolutely.
God bless them for that. That would be amazing. But it just doesn't seem to happen to those people as often. You were in a documentary.
I be done been was is.
I be done been was is. Deborah Robinson's 1984 documentary.
Yes.
With Marsha Warfield, Alice Arthur, Jane Galvin Lewis.
Yes.
About all of your experiences as Black female comedians in a male-dominated industry.
Yes, yes. And I want people to reach out to Deborah Robinson about that documentary. I really do feel so much in today's world is right now, instantaneous, and history is actually being erased. I mean, actually being erased. And I want people to reach out to Deborah Robinson and to go to libraries and ask for I be done been was is, just to get a peek at what we were going through when we were starting, when we were coming up.
These days, in addition to comedy, you're a writer on Politipod.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating for me. And I will always thank Paul Lander for introducing me to it. It opened up an entirely new world for me at a time when my consciousness was changing and I was actually becoming more aware of topical humor for expression, that I felt like I could express myself through topical humor. I wrote The Careless Bobert. Lauren Boebert had a careless driving charge, and then her teenage son had a careless driving charge. And I have a bit, about, this generations of Boeberts crashing cars and having children at a very young age. Her teenage son actually became a father, as Lauren had done to her mother as well. There's a very interesting sense of camaraderie and on Politipod. Everyone has a different perspective and we all contribute from where we are. I love it. You just pull something out of the air, whatever is going on, whatever is on your mind, whatever's on MSNBC or on Twitter, and write a sketch about it. And we're on SoundCloud and other places where you can get your podcast, Politipod Podcast.
I'll put a link in the show notes. And you hang out with John Fugelsang on Mondays.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Hashtag HandsomeMonday. Oh my gosh. I've been doing that for quite some time. John is just an incredible, he's a great stand-up, but he has a lot of experience in television, VH1, and he was also the host of Page 6 when that was going on here. He's a good host, and he's got a great background, and I love sharing time with him on his show, Tell Me Everything, which is on Sirius XM, and I'm his regular Monday night guest.
Yeah, we used to do these hashtag games on Twitter all the time, and he would play along occasionally and blow up everything, which was awesome. By blow up, I mean in a good way, of course. That's awesome. And then Joan Rivers show, movie review.
Oh my goodness, yes. I was her movie reviewer for several episodes when she had her television show here in New York. She was so kind to me. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. It was a fascinating experience to, go to the movies and then come back and report on her show. But she's an inspiration, along with, for me, Moms Mabley, Phyllis Diller. Joan Rivers was just an incredible icon.
I love Joan Rivers. I grew up, my parents, specifically my mom, loved Joan Rivers. So I grew up listening to Joan Rivers. I had Melissa Rivers on my podcast. I hold up my cassette of, Joan, my Joan Rivers cassette, which obviously I can't listen to, but I still have it. I never got rid of it because I don't have a cassette player. That's why I don't. Everyone listening is like, what's a cassette player? I don't even know. What is he talking about? Anyway, yeah, I love Joan Rivers. Rhonda, what else is going on?
Well, I don't know if it's next. What's going on now is that I do political cartoons with a great illustrator, Scott Williams, and people can find that anybody who actually still on Facebook, they can find Politics. It's a tongue twister, but we have started a series about the Supreme Court, and Clarence Thomas is our first in the series, so people can actually like Politics and share their favorite cartoon that's there on Facebook.
Amazing. Well, I'll put links to everything in the show notes.
So that's so sweet. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thanks for hanging out with me. I really appreciate it.
I love it. I just feel so great as an artist that I have so many avenues open to me and so many nice people like you and Paul Lander keeping my name in circulation because I'm still out here. I'm a woman of a certain age. I got seasoned in the previous century, but I'm still here. I'm still funny. And I'd love for people to follow me, on Twitter, TikTok, or Facebook, Instagram, and wherever else we're going to be revealing every single thing about our pathetic lives.
You can find Rhonda on Threads now. Also, she'll be on Threads. I'll put links to all your socials on the show notes as well, so everyone can just get to it real quick. No problem there. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
My pleasure.
All right. How amazing was Rhonda Hansome? So many great stories. The Muppets. First episode of Saturday Night Live. Joan Rivers touring with Anita Baker and a million other legends. Check out her hilarity at rhondahansome.com. I will put links to everything we talked about in the show notes. Can't believe this episode has just flown by. Another huge thank you to Rhonda Hansome for being my special guest. And of course, a huge thank you to all of you for coming back week after week. It means the world to me, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Classic Conversations. If you like what you heard, don't be shy and give us a follow on your favorite podcast app. Also, why not go ahead and tell all your friends about the show? You strike us as the kind of person that people listen to. Thanks in advance for spreading the word, and we'll catch you next time on Classic Conversations.